It had been nearly a year since I moved out to live on my own. A year of taking care of everything, from paying rent, grocery shopping, cleaning, to the eternal question, what am I going to eat today? Living independently wasn't as glamorous as I imagined, but at the very least, I had learned how to be on my own and live well. Then one day, my dad called. His voice sounded a bit surprised, with a hint of curiosity. "I'm thinking of coming to the city for a few days. Mind if I drop by and visit you?" I was taken aback. My dad was never the type to travel far, let alone suddenly show up to visit anyone, but I was glad. It had been a long time since we had a proper conversation, just the two of us. I cleaned my apartment thoroughly, not a speck of dust left behind. I mopped the floors, organized my books, even bought a few new towels to hang in the bathroom. Not just to show off, but because I wanted him to see that I was doing fine. I wanted him to feel at ease. That afternoon, I went to pick him up at the bus station. He looked the same. Thin frame, plaid shirt tucked into slacks, more gray in his hair than the last time I saw him. But his eyes were still sharp, still carried that fatherly gaze that could read me like an open book. As soon as he walked into my apartment, he looked around. He nodded approvingly, walking slowly through the place like a hotel inspector. Not bad. Pretty tidy. I smiled and poured him a glass of water. He scanned the room once more, then suddenly leaned in and sniffed. "What's that clean smell? Floor cleaner? Smells too clean. You living with a girl or something?" I burst out laughing. That suspicious tone of his instantly reminded me of all those times in high school when he interrogated me for coming home 10 minutes late. "No, Dad. I just learned how to clean." He replied, unconvinced. He leaned back into the chair as if trying to imagine a version of me who could actually clean, and not quite believing it. That night, I cooked a simple dinner: vegetable soup, steamed fish, and a bit of brown rice. Dad looked at the meal, then looked at me, as if evaluating something deeply. "Steamed fish? Not fried? What's this? Brown rice?" "It's whole grain rice. Better for your health." He nodded slowly, then took a bite, chewing thoughtfully while watching me with that same cautious expression. I knew that look. He was thinking, has he really changed? Or is someone changing him? After dinner, Dad opened the fridge. I was washing dishes when I heard him call out from the kitchen, "3 types of milk? What is this? Almond, oat, and soy? Yep, definitely a woman living here." I wiped my hands and walked out. "No, Dad, I'm just trying to eat healthier." Again, that long, skeptical hum followed by a sideways glance. I didn't know whether to laugh or sigh. In Dad's eyes, I was still the kid who lived off instant noodles and fried eggs. The idea that I could now take care of myself, and do it well, seemed unbelievable to him. He didn't say much the rest of the evening, just sat watching TV, occasionally glancing my way like he was trying to piece together some silent mystery. And me? I sat there watching a cooking show, thinking to myself, all I need is for him to stay a few more days. Then he'll see. I've got my life together. But I was wrong. Very wrong. Because Dad's suspicions were only just beginning. During the days my dad stayed with me, I tried to show him that I had matured, not just by knowing how to clean or cook, but also in the way I lived and thought. I told him about my work, my future plans, and how I was saving up to buy a car. Dad listened, nodded, but occasionally looked at me with that skeptical look. One morning, I was brewing coffee when I heard Dad rummaging in the kitchen. He opened the cupboard, looked around, and then asked, Wait, are there two identical thermoses here? I quickly responded. One's mine, the other's my roommate's. Dad didn't say anything, but I could clearly see him scrutinizing every little detail. It was as if there was a mental checklist forming in his head. Clean? Check. Healthy eating? Check. 3 types of milk in the fridge? Check. 2 thermoses? Another check. By lunchtime, he was going through the bathroom drawer and pulled out a small bottle of perfume. "Whose is this?" he asked. "My roommate's." "Is it a man's or woman's?" "It's a woman's." He looked at me, pursed his lips, as though holding back a conclusion. So you're living with a woman, huh?" "No, Dad. She's just my roommate. We share rent to save money." He replied, dragging the sound out, and placed the perfume bottle on the table like he had just uncovered a piece of evidence in a case. That afternoon, we were watching a soccer match. In the middle of the game, I went to get some drinks, and then I heard Dad ask from the couch, "So, does your roommate work or study?" I answered, "She works." "Same company as you?" "No, she works elsewhere." Dad stayed quiet for a moment, then said, "She's pretty, huh? I saw a photo of you two together last time. That person in the picture with you, was that her?" I paused for a moment, then laughed. "Yeah, I guess that was a picture from when we went out to eat together." Dad didn't say anything else, but I knew what was going on in his head. The pieces were slowly coming together, forming a picture he was convinced was the truth. The funny thing was, I hadn't done anything to make him think otherwise. I lived more healthily, kept my apartment clean, and, by coincidence, my roommate was a woman. Even though there was no romantic relationship, every little detail seemed to tell a different story. That evening, when I went out to buy some snacks, Dad stayed home alone. When I returned, I found him holding my hairdryer, inspecting it. "This works pretty well. Lightweight, but powerful," he said as I walked in. I was a bit surprised. "Wait, Dad, what are you doing with the hairdryer?" "I saw it lying around, so I decided to test it. My hair's a bit damp." I laughed. "I'll tell my roommate to put it away. Otherwise, you might think it's shared." Dad didn't respond. He just nodded and placed the hairdryer back where it was. But I knew exactly what was going through his mind. He no longer asked direct questions. Instead, he had shifted to subtle, indirect inquiries. Every question now had 2 layers, one of concern and the other, investigation. I started to feel tired, not because he was suspicious, but because he was so certain about things that weren't true. I didn't know whether I should let him continue believing it, or if I should explain everything to him. I thought Dad would give up on his theory after a few days, but I was wrong. Because Dad's suspicions were about to lead to an even more awkward situation. My dad left the city on Monday morning. I drove him to the bus station early, the air still cool and the sun not yet harsh. On the way there, he was quieter than usual. No more indirect questions, no more comments about the roommate. Just silence, occasional nods, as if his mind was elsewhere. Before getting off the car, he turned to me. "Take care of yourself, and don't do anything foolish." I laughed. "Relax, Dad. I'm living a clean, responsible life." He nodded, gave my shoulder a pat, then stepped out. I stood there watching the bus pull away and disappear around the corner. Part of me felt relieved, like I'd just passed a surprise inspection by the strictest supervisor on earth. But another part felt uneasy. The look in his eyes wasn't exactly reassuring. It felt more like he was hiding a knowing smile. A few days passed, and I had almost forgotten all about Dad's suspicions. Life returned to normal. I went to work, My roommate was busy with her own schedule. We each lived our own rhythm, only crossing paths in the evening to cook dinner or watch a movie. Then, one evening, she walked into the living room with a strange expression on her face. In her hand was the hairdryer. "Hey, weird question. Did your dad borrow my hairdryer?" I frowned. "What?" "I haven't seen it since your dad visited. I remember he was holding it, checking it out that day." I burst out laughing. "No way, but I'll ask him, just in case." I didn't think much of it. I texted my dad, half joking, "Hey Dad, not saying you took my roommate's hairdryer, but she hasn't seen it since your visit." A few minutes later, he replied, and that message stopped me in my tracks. "I'm not saying you're dating your roommate, but if you are, she might want it back before her next date. With you." I sat there staring at my phone for a long moment. Then I couldn't help but laugh out loud. Not because of the message itself, but because I had lost. Completely lost the battle of keeping things normal versus Dad's wild theories. I handed my phone to my roommate. She read the message and her jaw dropped. Then she burst out laughing. "Your dad is intense. He seriously thinks we're a couple." I sighed. "And he's completely convinced now." She shrugged. "Maybe we should just let him keep thinking that. Might save us from more weird questions." I looked at her and nodded. "Yeah, but he still hasn't returned your hairdryer." "Well, maybe. He's just waiting for our next date before he gives it back." We both laughed. The room felt lighter somehow, like my dad, in his own strange way, had brought us closer together with just one text. I don't know if he really took the hairdryer, but one thing I do know: Dad doesn't need hard evidence. In his eyes, the signs are enough. And once he's drawn his conclusion, there's no changing it. After that bizarre message from my dad, the vibe in our apartment started to shift. Not in some romantic K-drama way, just in a strange, subtle way. Like we were both trying a little too hard to act like nothing was going on. Every time my roommate walked out of her room with wet hair, I had to hold back a laugh, thinking, the hairdryer was probably still tucked somewhere in my dad's suitcase, and every now and then, she'd playfully complain, "Your dad's unbelievable. Took my stuff and still threw shade at me? Anyone else would have called the cops." I chuckled. He didn't say he took it. He just didn't deny it. That kind of teasing went on for a while, and eventually we both just stopped denying my dad's assumptions outright. We were still just friends, still splitting rent, still living our separate lives. But now, with a shared joke hanging between us. I called it a mutual misunderstanding, one we both chose not to correct. I told a couple of close friends what my dad thought. I expected sympathy. Instead, they stared at me and asked, "Wait, so you two really aren't dating?" "No. You live together, cook together, watch movies together, grocery shop together." "Yeah, sure. Totally platonic." Their sarcasm was thick, and the suspicion in their eyes felt very familiar. Even my mom, during a phone call to check in on me, casually said, "That girl in your photo looks sweet. If it ever turns into something more, don't hold back." I just stayed quiet. Because the more I denied it, the more everyone seemed convinced I was hiding something. One day, I came home early and found my roommate trying to bake. The kitchen smelled like butter and vanilla. Her face was dusted in flour, funny and weirdly cute. I was about to turn away when she looked up at me. "Wanna try?" "Try what?" "Baking. Not me, don't worry." I laughed. That sentence, in any other context, might have cleared up all the confusion. But in that moment, I just nodded and stepped into the kitchen. We stood side by side, our hands covered in dough, not saying much. But I knew, and I think she did too, that something was changing. Not because of my dad, not because of the hairdryer, but because of time. Because all the small things were starting to stack up into something bigger. Later that night, while we were doing the dishes, she suddenly asked, "If someday we really did end up together, would you tell your dad first?" I paused, then smiled. I probably wouldn't have to. He'd know before I did. She laughed too, but this time her smile wasn't just playful. It felt a little real. After that night, everything in the apartment stayed the same. But somehow, nothing felt quite like before. Movie nights weren't just about passing time anymore. Shared meals didn't feel like just a convenient routine. And whenever my roommate laughed, I no longer simply thought, "She's easy to be around." I started wondering, could this be something more? But I didn't say anything. Neither did she. We both kept things in that safe zone, as if taking even one more step might risk losing something valuable. Our friendship, our comfort, maybe even ourselves. Then, one day, my dad called. Not to check in, but to announce, "I'm coming to visit next month. Gonna stay a bit longer this time. Want to see how you two are doing?" I laughed. "You two?" "Dad, it's just me and my roommate." He just let out a short, Weeks later, he actually came. And this time, he brought a brand new hairdryer, still in its box. "For your roommate. I'm keeping the old one. This one's better anyway. Consider it my replacement." She took it, smiled faintly, and turned away. But behind her, I caught my dad watching me. That look of someone who already knows the truth and is waiting for you to finally admit it. That night, after Dad went to sleep, she and I sat out on the balcony. The city was quiet. The breeze was cool. The warm glow of the street lights blurred through the glass. I said, "You asked me once, if we ever ended up together, would I tell my dad first? I don't think I'd have to. He's known all along." She looked at me. Her eyes weren't surprised or unsure, just waiting. I took a breath. "I'm not sure we can start anything right now. I've got a lot on my plate, so do you. But if someday we both find ourselves looking in the same direction, maybe then I'll say, 'Okay, Dad was right.'" She smiled, gently. No expectations, no disappointment. Just this: "I'll wait for that day, but I'm not promising I won't date someone else in the meantime, okay? I did just get my hairdryer back after all." I burst out laughing. "Guess I better move fast then." That night, I couldn't sleep. Not because I was worried, but because I felt light. We didn't start a new relationship, but we had started something more important: honesty. And my dad, through all his not-so-subtle hints and, I'm not saying, but messages, did something I couldn't. He opened the door to something that could happen. Maybe not today, but maybe tomorrow. This story isn't just about a dad who suspects too much. It's about how love can quietly grow in the most ordinary places, through shared routines, subtle glances, and unspoken feelings. Sometimes, it takes someone from the outside to see what we refuse to admit. And sometimes, just friends might be just the beginning. If this story made you smile, think, or feel a little warm inside, follow for more stories like this. Because sometimes, the smallest moments tell the biggest stories.